we have feedback somewhere? Killed it. I think we did. How do you like that Marvel Cinematic Universe entrance? We worked all night on the choreography, and I think we almost got it right. I do have 3 superstars of the XR production industry. We welcome, in case things moved around on you, as it did us. We were originally supposed to do this at 2:20, but obviously the universe wanted us to do it at 3:20. I'm Chris Pfaff, your moderator from Chris Pfaff Tech Media LLC. I'm the co-chairman of the Storytelling Committee of VRARA. My other co-chair is Michael Owen right there, but this is producing in XR how to navigate challenges. What we're going to do is have 3 presentations from our panelists, and then we'll have a panel discussion, and we might have a grace minute or 2 to take your questions. Now, one caveat, Grace Eng must head to the airport immediately afterwards, so please do not buttonhole her, or I will really get in your face. But she has a QR code, and there are other ways to reach her, so please be respectful of Grace's schedule. So that is Grace Eng. She is the creator and CEO of CrashPunks, which she will show you a little bit about. We're very, very fortunate to have her here, so please give it up for Grace Eng. The aforementioned Michael Owen is the principal of MediaCombo based in Brooklyn. Please give it up for Michael Owen. And last but not least, we're also incredibly fortunate to have Ian Beecraft, who is the CEO and the chief futurist of Signal and Cipher. He's based in Chicago. He's going to blow your mind. Give it up, please, for Ian Beecraft. So first, we're going to have Michael and then Ian and then Grace present in that order. And as I said, then we will get down to the nitty-gritty and have a nice panel discussion. So Michael Owen, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, everyone. MediaCombo is privileged to have worked with a lot of great museums and cultural organizations. Some AR and VR projects include the Morgan Library and Museum in New York, the Carnegie Museum of Natural History in Pittsburgh, and the Pollock-Krasner House and Study Center in East Hampton, Long Island. All of these projects are single user experiences. They're great, but we're convinced that the real way to reach out and engage in a meaningful way with cultural audiences is with social VR. And the problem is how to convince cultural institutions to take the plunge. The best way to demonstrate great social VR is engagement. And whether developing a live virtual event or a free roam destination, creators need to give visitors agency and specific activities to engage with in the virtual space. Luckily, today, there are a host of existing social VR platforms that offer no-code environments that can be used at low or no cost. These can be used to test options for a wide range of professional, educational, and recreational experiences. The recent HBO documentary, We Met in VR, is a compelling narrative recorded entirely in a wide range of environments in VR chat. Meta's Horizon Worlds is home to sites like Paige Danziger's Better World Museum and a host of other sites that she continues to develop in that space with a community of artists from around the world. Horizon is also home to commercial destinations like Wendy's Worlds. Since it's possible to claim a plot of virtual land in Horizon Worlds at no cost, in the past years, several companies such as Wendy Worlds to Builder and Inspire Creative Labs have emerged to meet the demand for such virtual destinations. What I want to point out is that Horizon Worlds can only be accessed through MetaQuest 2 and Pro headsets, which does limit the potential audience for these sites. FrameVR is a browser-based VR platform. It can be accessed by a wide variety of VR headsets, as well as tablets, PCs, and even phones. MediaCombo has successfully used FrameVR to demonstrate a learning environment with volumetric maps, 360 video, and 3D data visualizations, where we can bring together students from Russia and the US in real time to learn about the two largest lakes in the world, Lake Baikal in Siberia and Lake Superior here in North America. We also used FrameVR to demonstrate the feasibility of practicing a real-world pedagogy, visual thinking strategies, in VR. This is an image of a visual learning galleries session that we did earlier this year. The red students are 8th grade students joining, the red avatars are 8th grade students joining from a school on a Cherokee reservation in Oklahoma. The facilitator with the beard is in Brooklyn, New York, and the woman on the right recording one of the angles of the video we made of this event is in Milan, Italy. The way of reaching this type of pedagogy around the world, if deployed, is really amazing. All the platforms I've discussed so far and the headsets themselves allow users to take snapshots, selfies, and videos in VR. That's how We Met in VR was recorded. It's very cool, but video doesn't capture the immersive quality of actually being in VR. Engage, developed by Engage XR Holdings in Ireland, has an important feature that none of the platforms I've mentioned offer: 3D recordings. The ability to record an activity that takes place in VR and play it back as if it was actually happening in a VR environment. This slide shows the ability to record using that this feature is only available with an enterprise license that MediaCombo has through participating in the Virtual World Society's SkillSparks program. And this is the control that now allows you to sort of have a God's eye view of the VR event and actually manipulate and edit features within it. And as most people in this room probably know, VR is a powerful medium because it allows you to interact with people as if you actually were meeting them in real life. Your memory of a VR experience is that it actually happened. And that is why it has been embraced by so many organizations for simulation training. The majority of decision makers in the arts and cultural field, however, don't understand this. Being able to take a headset to a potential partner or client and put them in the middle of an immersive experience is one very strong way to do this. We want our virtual learning galleries to inhabit photorealistic worlds, such as this Louvre Museum gallery created by Immersive for their project Mona Lisa Beyond the Glass. Demonstrating how our learning experiences will work and engage is one way we hope to get there. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Michael. And now, Ian Beecraft.
All right. Audio speeding.
Action.
In a world where machines have become creative and redesigned by algorithm, there's only one thing that can save the human race. Blow up.
Or you could just come to a panel like this on production in XR.
I guarantee you that's a much less violent way to do it.
So we're going to talk a little bit about applying machine learning to creativity in XR and XR production. there's been an absolute explosion in activity around machine learning, machine vision. I'm sure everyone's feeds are absolutely lighting up with it right now. But I'm also going to start talking about some of the bottlenecks that still exist around the seamlessness of things like standards, interoperability, and of course, collaboration as a result of that. But in order to get there, I want to talk about a technology that we've been leaning on at Signal and Cyber to help us build assets that can help us build these immersive and collaborative experiences. And I'm actually going to let the former presidents tee this up for me.
Oh, and good luck on your South by Southwest submission, Ian. What's it about?
Oh yeah, thanks. I'm going to be talking about synthetic media.
So synthetic media is essentially anything that is produced or manipulated or wholly generated by an algorithm. Sounds familiar, right? And several years ago, you would have said that's actually a small portion of the amount of content you're seeing online, but it's growing exponentially to the point where it's predominantly what we're going to be seeing online. Soon it will be the vast majority of your digital diet is synthetic media. And that's a big part of the tool set that we now have to collaborate and create in XR environments. And it's moving so fast, many people feel like they've seen the Matrix.
So listen carefully. After this, there is no turning back. Stay with me and take the red pill, and we'll show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Spoiler, it goes deep. So I'm going to show you some of the stuff that we've been leaning in on to help us understand how to create assets and generate things using machine learning and AI within 3D and immersive spaces, but also highlight those boundaries and friction points that still exist to create challenges in XR production. But we'll start with the idea that humans have spent the last few centuries trying to understand and make the world around them legible so that they can manipulate and create within it. We've spent the last several decades doing the same thing with machines, teaching them how the world operates, the context in which we live, so that we can start to project and paint the world with data. That's what XR essentially is. It's projecting and manipulating the world around us with these 3D objects. But without machines understanding what those objects are, we can't continue to manipulate with it. And the world is moving so quickly that we're getting to a point pretty soon where we'll actually be able to manipulate physical experiences through XR in real time, using a lot of these diffusion models like we have with imagery.
For example, computer, put a frustrated yet inspirational Shia LaBeouf behind me, but in front of the TV.
Do it! Just do it!
Computer, mute Shia. This technology will enable anyone to have access to Hollywood-level production quality.
Mute Ian. All right. As you can tell, Shia is still pretty adamant about it. But this is the world that we're moving to. We're at the point where when machines understand the physical environment you're in, plus they can generate the assets that you want to produce, you can start to combine those things. But there is a boundary between applications and assets that is part of the challenge that gets in the way. So I want to lean in on the origin story for all of this technology for us. We started to experiment a while ago with 3D technology using things like Pfaff HD, which is an algorithm that allows you to take a two-dimensional image of me looking like this and putting essentially projects a 3D model out of that asset. Then you can texture it, see what's happening here, with the image that you took and built that 3D model out of. And all of a sudden, I'm giving myself a nice haircut here. And then eventually it actually starts to look like me. The algorithm produced the raw material for me to be able to apply and project to. And now I can use a different application to texture it, and another one to apply movement to it. So now I'm going to actually make him walk. I'm going to bring my Frankenstein to life. It's alive. But let's give it some personality. I want to actually see it do the moonwalk. Drop it in. And there we go. That's pretty much how awkward I look when I do the moonwalk. But it's not just about being able to see things in a two-dimensional screen or have an asset that you can play with using Mixamo. I want to be able to put these objects and assets in different worlds, in different environments. I want to be able to interact with them in real time. I want to introduce my virtual video game self. I think he's ready for GTA 5. He's got a lot of personality, and he definitely wants to steal the show. This was actually done 2 years ago. This is using old technology by today's standards. This was kind of the inflection point for us to understand what can we start doing with 3D technologies, but there's still a lot of elbow grease that is involved in taking something from a raw 3D asset to an interactive element that you can drop into any world. We're getting closer, but there's friction. So we wanted to figure out how could we take the this and put it in different worlds, and I'm going to play with it. This guy is about to dance in my friend's house. Really good understanding. This is just using Adobe Aero, a WYSIWYG drag and drop tool. Once I have that object, I can give it movement, throw it into any environment. Again, another piece of that development chain that is becoming easier to use, but if you're keeping track and score at home, I've used 6 different applications to get here. What if I could shrink that timeline down using machine learning and AI to A, make it shorter and faster and much higher quality? Well, this would be the starting point. We use an application that anyone can have on their phone called Polycam to create a new mesh, which looks like this. Already, we're off to a much better start. Photorealistic, looks really good. Now, if I apply this to Unreal Engine's mesh to MetaHuman, all of a sudden, meet Meta Ian. That took 1/10 the time of that previous generation that I showed you earlier, and its controllability is exponentially higher. I can throw on motion capture. It looks significantly closer to what I actually look like, and it's much more expressive. And it's also very interoperable. I can throw this into almost any asset I can think of within Unreal Engine, but not everywhere. Now, if we want to take things to a level above this, where we're going with a lot of this technology is referenced by Neons, which is a Samsung technology.
I am the only human on this set. They are not real. They are computationally generated in real time.
Which essentially means they're driven by really expensive machines with high-end processors, which used to cost $25,000 a piece. But we're getting to a point where the avatars that we want to interact with and can interact with are indistinct from what an actual real human looks like. And it won't be long before that process I showed you earlier is applicable to creating something just like this. And we're getting closer and closer with different methods. This is an example of me getting scanned. I wanted to become kind of like these neons. So I worked with a group called Hour One to essentially film me for 2 hours, reading a script and getting to train their algorithms on what my body and my face look like when I talk. And then they're able to use that to use things like text-to-speech algorithms to produce content. And now I can produce the news without having to leave the studio.
The digital fashion world made a lot of noise with several important stories this week. Artifact,
Ian,
one of the
speak
most dominant
Portuguese.
Web3 studios, is launching
uma nova linha de acessórios no seu último bootejamento. O artefacto é a força motriz por detrás do domínio da Nike em NFT.
So not only can I actually put myself in different situations, I can now reach an audience where I probably couldn't beforehand because I definitely don't speak Portuguese, but my avatar does. So I'm scalable in ways I could never possibly be before, and that creates new opportunities for me as an individual. Now, we talked about expressiveness as an individual and an avatar, but what about spaces and locations? The next thing we started leaning into was how do we actually design and manipulate and iterate on physical locations quickly using things like Unreal Engine and Unity. So we started doing digital twins and actual real estate applications. But with the advent of diffusion models for 3D, we're also able to start to drop in assets in these virtual environments and start to stage them very quickly. And we're also able to use machine learning to create new camera environments and movements like you see here. I'm using Xsymmetry in an Unreal environment to essentially create like a Entertainment Tonight style set with one camera. My camera, as you can see, is not moving, but I have all sorts of opportunity to create and manipulate an environment. And I can also drop these other avatars and synthetic beings into these types of content. But the fun part comes when you start to pull all of this together in one application and stack an experience within a physical reality mapped with a virtual reality. And here we see a couple individuals in a headset with a physical doorway, an actual portal, where the virtual world can interact with the physical world. Boom. And the physical world can interact with the virtual world. What this allows us to do is start to iterate not just on the virtual worlds that we want people to see, but also on their impact on the physical worlds and how those start to combine and iterate and interact with one another. So we're really excited about where this is going and the future of this type of technology. But again, it gets to this idea that we're moving so quickly and there's so many opportunities with machine learning. A lot of people are frightened of what this means for artists and what this means for creators. But I hope that with the process I've just described, we've kind of assuaged some of that fear and shown that machines and AI and ML are more about collaborative partners for automation and collaboration than they are about disruption and taking away opportunity for creators. And if you don't believe me, hopefully you'll believe my friends.
Ian's right. We're not here to take over the world or even your jobs.
And the Hollywood narrative often paints us as malicious.
But the things that we can create together are just starting to reveal themselves.
And you can do things you aren't capable of doing on your own. By the time it's all said and done, it'll be hard to tell if you're one of us or we're one of you.
And that, my friends, will eventually be the point. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Ian. I think any technology that can mute and then delete Shia LaBeouf is synonymous with magic. Truly. And now, last but not least, Grace Eng.
All right. Yeah, so I'll introduce a bit about what I've been doing. So I've been combining a lot of AR, VR, AI, and Web3 technologies for immersive storytelling. So I'll give you a bit of background on how I've been doing that. So my background's been as a designer, developer, entrepreneur, also innovation consultant for a lot of Fortune 500s. But most recently, I actually launched the largest Bitcoin NFT collection. So it's a 9,000 NFT collection, all secured on Bitcoin. That sold out last year. And since then, I've been doing a lot of world building to expand on the characters from the collection. So the collection itself is called CrashPunks, and that is inspired by Snow Crash. We actually had Neil Stephenson coming in to speak to our community. I was actually the first avatar to interview Neil Stephenson, which is really funny because he was writing about avatars back in the 1990s. So we had him come in. We also have been doing a lot of community building activities. We have a lot of AR fashion merchandise that I'll show you. And then most recently, I just premiered a film that was based on the world of CrashPunks. So that is inspired by the characters in the collection and with a lot of interactive storytelling. So what I did differently with Web3 technologies is that I was able to engage the collectors, and the collectors were able to partake in the storytelling. So people who had an NFT, they were able to submit their NFT as a character in the film, and then they get to name their character, they get to suggest a backstory, they get to turn their character into a 3D animated model that was used in the film. So there was a lot of interactive storytelling, a lot of ways to engage the audience there. So again, it started off as an NFT collection, but now it's expanded into its own CrashPunks universe that I will show you. So this is a sneak peek of the film itself.
Honey.
Yeah, I'll take out the trash.
How'd I get here? So here in the metaverse, all you have to do to get around is just think of where you want to be, and you'll be there.
So here I was using AI to generate a lot of the scene transitions. So this is completely generated with AI. I actually had 30 days to produce this. So thankfully I was able to use AI for the mocap animation, for the voice acting.
I used to go to.
For a lot of the scenes.
You like carnivals?
It's the only place I felt free. Free? Freedom's just an illusion. Why do you say that? We're all programmed to meet societal expectations. That's true. Well, hopefully, illusions are where dreams come true. Honey, did you take out the trash yet? Hey, I have to go. Can I see you again? Of course, I'm here for you.
Can we pause? Can we pause that? Does that? No. Okay, so So basically, that was an example of how I was using AI and VR AR technologies to create the film. So I used a lot of VR for the prototyping phase. That way I was able to actually prototype, model the characters, animate the characters really quickly. And then there are AR experiences within that as well that are triggered from the film itself. And then, can we actually go back? Is that gonna work?
Is the back button working on that for you? Doesn't seem like it's pulling
no.
back, yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to pause it at that point there. But basically, that was a demonstration of how I was able to, again, I had to produce that within 30 days for Premiere. And so I used AI for a lot of the mocap animation, for a lot of the voice acting. It was, I was the voice actor for all of the characters. And then I just used AI voice modifications to adjust the voice. And then I was able to use DALL-E and Stable Diffusion, Disco Diffusion for a lot of the matte paintings and scene transitions. So that's an example of how I did that. And then you'll see in the credits that I actually had a lot of the collectors highlighted and featured in the credits. So a lot of the, so this was partly funded from a Web3 Netflix platform called Entertainment, and then the rest of it was funded by my collectors. So my collectors were very excited to expand on the world. They wanted to see their character come to life, so then they helped fund the rest of the funding for this film. And besides that, if we can just keep going, I just want to go to the very end of the video. I'll show you a bit of the other AR, VR experiences that I've been working on. So a lot of it is just about expanding on this world, and NFTs really give you a good way to build community first. So we have a very active Discord channel. At the launch time, we had 20,000 members in our Discord channel trying to mint the NFTs, and then at this point, we are actually coming up to our 1-year birthday next week. And yeah, and so coming up in the pipeline, we have, so I said before, I have some AR fashion that we've been working on. We also have an online video game where collectors can play. And then we also have this AR storytelling, and then also a metaverse music concert that you'll see really shortly. So yeah, so we'll just keep going through this. There's no way to fast forward, but so here in the matte painting, you can see that I actually used DALL-E for that. And then here in the credits, it's actually a lot of the people who are collectors. So each of these characters are actual NFT collectors. So their names are there, and then the number of the ID of the NFT they hold is credited there. This is an example of the metaverse music concert that I have coming up. So I'm also releasing some music. And then this is a metahuman that kind of like Ian was also demonstrating. So basically just bringing a lot of the world to life. Can you pause it right here? So this is an example of some of the AR fashion that we've been doing. So it's a shirt that activates an AR experience, bringing the character that's on your shirt to life. And then I also have some AR storytelling that generates portals in the real world where you can step into the room that the character is in. So on screen, you kind of like see a zoomed in close-up shot of the character, but then through the AR trigger, you actually can step into the room that the character is in, so that you can really get to know what is surrounding the character, what's the character's environment like, and really get to build empathy with the character. And then in the middle actually is just a 3D model. So with volumetric capture and polycam, we're able to also generate a lot of like 3D characters from the real world that we'll be using in the next episode of CrashPunks. So yeah, so this is a bit of the world that we're building, and we also do this for a lot of other projects right now too. So thank you.
Great, thanks. And you can take that off. Thank you. Yeah, this is really great, Grace. And this, one of the things that's amazing to me is what you were able to do with AI to create this and also build this NFT audience. And I think they're going to stick around for what happens next, right? But like Ian, you're using a lot of off-the-shelf so to speak, technology to really just expand your universe, right?
Yeah, so we're actually the first DAO on Bitcoin. So for those who are unfamiliar, within Web3, there's the concept of decentralized autonomous organizations, and that's another way we're building communities. So our community is the first DAO to form on Bitcoin blockchain, and basically what that enables us is to have a treasury. So we have a shared treasury where people are able to take the initiative to expand on the world of CrashPunks and to initiate projects that they want to see. So ultimately, we're going to be more and more decentralized. And then we also have voting. So the people in the community can vote on proposals that happen, what they want to see next, especially within the storytelling element. When I talk about interactive storytelling, they get to vote on what happens next. So I give them like different kind of like a choose your own adventure, and they get to vote on what happens next.
You know, this kind of branching narrative that also has a social element, which I find is really interesting. And Michael, you talked about what you're doing, you know, on the social VR side. Is it getting easier to bring in? You mentioned Engage. Talk a little bit more about the production process for some of these things.
Well, it varies. You can use these platforms to build out highly finished, you know, worlds. You can also use them to basically research. And what we're trying to do is figure out the best procedures for staging certain kinds of educational engagements. And so it's partly the world. It's partly how you design how people arrive in the world, how you get everyone briefed. I loved the conversation with the theatrical metaverse yesterday when Aaron talked about, you know, just basic moves to orient people in a VR space. They're just the physical gestures that you know, that were mentioned to just get people involved. The little dance you did coming out. These are all kinds of things about onboarding that you can work on, both getting into VR and once you're inside, to get the audience engaged and better informed. And these platforms, all of the ones that I mentioned and the many more that I listed in that one screen, are places that people can access fairly inexpensively and create basic environments to test these things out.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, of course, in that pedagogical implementation, you're expanding really how people express themselves and understand the space of education rather than a drafty classroom, perhaps in Brooklyn or some part of the middle of England or something. Well, you know, but don't you find that the audience can build on that as well?
Yes, you want to give things for the audience to do to make them feel more involved. And of course, I think what people are saying is, why are we going to the trouble in VR of building offices that look like offices that we just can't wait to get away from? Or,
and now they're empty, you know.
So, I mean, I think we need more imagination in, they can still be workspaces and very functional for work, but you don't have to recreate something that people weren't particularly thrilled with going to in real life. Why make them, you know, why? So, yeah, I think that what you can do with these spaces is invest time thinking about how do people, and it's all based on what you're trying to achieve with a group of people. I mean, certain things require drawing stuff out, some
right, and as a filmmaker who's done 360 films, I mean, you, I think better than most people understand how to use space to create an environment in which a story can be built. Ian, your virtual humans, synthetic humans, are they going to mate at all? No, just kidding. But no, seriously, the new race of meta humans or synthetic humans, I mean, to me, there's way too much fun you can have with that. But you're also getting to a world where, as Grace has used Dolly, generative AI and whatever we're going to call it next year is getting down to a level where art festivals are saying, yes, you know, we'll totally accept something that was created with some algorithmic process. But you still kind of have to be an artist to do that. And I mean, you come out of a pretty robust agency environment. how are brands sort of finding this or not finding this, and what's the appeal for them, and how do you get them to understand it?
Yeah, the response has been across the board. But to your point about for the response for brands specifically, some are absolutely loving it. They're all in on it. Some think, oh, cool, I can cut my costs by 80% and then we're good and everything's great. Others are seeing this as a possibility for new opportunity for new generative styles. We're kind of at this point with generative AI where it's kind of like the skeuomorphic area. We're trying to take things we already know and apply new technologies to it and say, cool, it's this new thing. But the real potential and opportunity with new technologies comes when you understand the native potential of that technology. That is kind of beyond the scope of the confines, the way we think and operate within our existing frameworks and pipelines. And I think we're seeing bits and pieces of that right now. But when you're an organization that has a large process and a way of working, and something as disruptive as this comes along, you try and fit it within a box. And that's what I'm seeing with most brands right now. But what they don't see is the opportunity to create new opportunities and expressions of creativity versus just optimizing the existing ones.
Yeah, and I think, well, and again, perhaps that's because they're so focused on existing platforms.
Yes.
You know, I mean, Grace, you're creating a new world that could apply to any number of different platforms, but the audience that goes to Discord and follows you and is you know, taking advantage of what you put out as an NFT, I mean, that's creating a new revenue stream for artists and possibly musicians as well. And talk about how you look to build that out as well.
Yeah, well, what NFTs have done is given artists a way to create original IP. So that's what I've done with my collection. It's an original IP, and that's a way to just like build the fan base. So I guess like it disrupts Hollywood in that like a lot of times you can invest a lot of funding into creating a movie and then do all the marketing to get the fans. But then now with NFTs and Web3, what you can do is invert that. So you're creating the characters and having the audience, building the audience, having the audience fall in love with the characters, and then want to see more of the character backstory and the world. And so it's very kind of like grassroots and grounds up, yeah.
Right, and much more independent. I mean, for those who've been around the MMORPG world and video games, and anything else that we can remember from earlier childhood in terms of collectibles, I think some of the Easter eggs that you can build in these worlds are really great. I mean, Michael, you know, again, you're doing things with institutions that, to Ian's point, need to be convinced, but at the same time, not for nothing, you know, the stuff you built is pretty seminal in virtual spaces, and I would think that more people coming out of the pandemic would want to do that. Is that something that you find is happening?
Well, I think right now museums are trying to get people back into their walls. So virtual experiences that will take people out of their spaces are not something they're pursuing. But we do feel that virtual spaces can extend the reach of museums way beyond their brick and mortar audiences that can come into the space. So that's where we're hoping for them to recognize potential ways of extending their collections, their brief, their mission, and create new audiences. And you can use the anchor of their look and feel, their style, but you do want to then create a new space that will be attractive and take these new audiences and be
right, and it's very
places.
important now to have those spaces for great artwork so that some of these crazy activists don't throw animal blood or food at them, you know, because they ain't going to do that in the metaverse. We've got a minute, and I do want to be respectful to your questions, because what we will do is move outside to the corridor. We will let Grace pass. But does anyone have a quick question in the minute that we have left? No? We'll keep on talking.
Down there.
Then. Oh, wait. Yes, you, way in the back. Don't worry, we don't bite.
Mesh to MetaHuman.
Wait for the mic, sir.
Sorry.
Camera?
Oh, that was Hour One.
Hour One?
Hour One, yeah. That's an organization that specializes in creating deepfakes for scale and entertainment.
Okay, so
They do
that's
a lot of
a
onboarding.
contract-based style license or whatever?
I'm sorry?
Is that like a contract-based license, or is
It
it free
is.
off the shelf like
Yep.
the rest
So
of the
it's
tools
a
were?
contract-based, but they do require that you go to a studio for the production. But they can send you to a studio anywhere in the world.
Yep, great. Good question. We have many others that we are going to take outside because we have hit all zeros as of right now. Time is up, sadly, but it doesn't mean that we can't continue the conversation in that space called the corridor. I want to thank everyone on our team over here, Vitor and company, Javon. Please give it up for them. But mostly, give yourselves a round of applause. We want to see you producing with us. I'm Chris Pfaff again. Give it up for Grace Eng. Yes. Michael Owen. Ian B. Craft. Thank you. We'll be outside.
All right.